What if there's a language that exists beyond sound? A form of communication so ancient it came before every word we know? Christianity, Kabbalah, and Islam speak of it differently, but point to the same mystery. There's a language connecting humans to the divine. A language that was forgotten, hidden, or simply lost in time. What would happen if you could recover it? If you could speak directly to forces beyond the veil? What do sacred texts really reveal about communication beyond human speech? Have you ever wondered why sacred texts across different traditions describe moments when prophets received messages that couldn't quite be translated into ordinary words? There's something bigger happening here, something that challenges everything we think we know about divine communication. In Islam, when the angel Jibril appeared to Muhammad in the cave of Hira, the experience was described as overwhelming. It wasn't a casual conversation. The prophet felt the words being pressed into his very soul. Inscribed, imprinted. The Arabic term used is wahi, revelation, but it literally means something closer to inspired transmission, not spoken, not written, transferred directly into consciousness. The Kabbalistic tradition takes this even further. In Jewish mysticism, before God created the world, there was only sound, pure vibration. The Torah describes creation happening through speech, and God said, "Let there be light." But Kabbalists understand this differently. It wasn't about words, it was about frequencies. Each Hebrew letter is considered a living force. When combined, these letters don't just describe reality, they shape it. They're not symbols, they're tools of creation itself. Now look at Christianity. The Gospel of John opens with one of the most mysterious statements ever written. In the beginning was the Word, but the original Greek uses logos, which means so much more than just word. It means divine reason, cosmic order, the organizing principle of everything. Early Christian mystics understood this. They knew the logos wasn't about language as we know it. It was about the fundamental vibration underlying all existence. Here's what connects all three traditions. They're all pointing to something that exists before language, before symbols, before sound itself, a form of communication that operates on a level we've forgotten how to access. Close your eyes right now. Take 3 deep breaths. In this silence, pay attention to what emerges. Not thoughts, not words, but that subtle awareness underneath everything. That's the doorway. That's where the ancient language begins. What you're about to discover next will completely transform how you understand prayer, meditation, and spiritual connection. Because if angels don't speak the way we do, then how have humans been communicating with them for thousands of years? How ancient mystics learned to speak without words? Let's get practical, because this isn't just philosophy. Throughout history, there have been people who claim to have recovered this lost language, and they left us instructions. In Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, there's a practice called muraqabah, spiritual contemplation. It's not about thinking or analyzing. It's about entering a state where your consciousness becomes like a clear mirror. Sufi masters teach that in this state, you can receive direct transmission from the divine realm. No words needed, just pure knowing. The 13th century mystic Rumi wrote about it constantly. He said the language of the soul doesn't need a translator. Christian contemplatives discovered something remarkably similar. The Desert Fathers of early Christianity practiced what they called hesychasm, inner stillness. They would retreat into caves and spend years in silence, learning to quiet every thought until only awareness remained. And in that space, they reported experiencing direct communion with the divine. St. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul, because it was bad, but because it happened beyond the light of ordinary consciousness. The Kabbalah offers perhaps the most technical approach. There's a practice called hitbodit, secluded meditation with God. But here's the twist. Practitioners were taught to meditate on the Hebrew letters themselves, not their meanings, their shapes, their sounds, their vibrations. Each letter was understood as a portal. Meditating on Yod, for instance, wasn't about understanding what it meant. It was about allowing your consciousness to merge with the frequency it represented. Notice the pattern? Islam, Christianity, Kabbalah all developed practices designed to bypass ordinary language and access something deeper. They all recognize that the language of angels operates on a different level entirely. Here's something you can try right now. Choose any sacred sound that resonates with you. It could be Om, Amen, Subhan, Allah, or even just a vowel sound. Close your eyes. Begin repeating it out loud or silently, but don't focus on the meaning. Focus on the vibration. Feel where it resonates in your body. Let it carry you deeper than words can go. What happens when you do this regularly? What opens up? Because once you understand this principle, everything about spiritual practice begins to make sense in a completely new way. Why this knowledge was hidden from you? Well, we need to talk about something uncomfortable. This knowledge, this direct access to divine communication, was deliberately suppressed. Not everywhere, not all at once, but gradually, systematically, across centuries. Think about it. If anyone could access divine guidance directly, what happens to religious authority? What happens to the gatekeepers? Throughout history, whenever mystics began teaching that ordinary people could communicate with the divine without intermediaries, they faced persecution. Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart were investigated by the Inquisition. Why? Because he taught that the divine spark existed within every person, that you didn't need the church as a middleman. That direct experience was available to anyone willing to go deep enough. In Judaism, Kabbalistic teachings were restricted for centuries. You had to be over 40, married, and already extensively educated in Torah before you could even begin studying. The rabbinical authorities claimed it was too dangerous, too powerful. What they really meant was too democratizing, because if everyone could access these practices, who would need the established hierarchy? Even in Islam, Sufis were often viewed with suspicion by Orthodox scholars. The idea that you could achieve direct knowledge of God through ecstatic practices, through dance, through music, this threatened the established order. Some Sufi mystics were executed for teaching that the divine presence could be experienced directly. See the pattern? Across all three traditions, the same thing happened. The direct path was gradually closed off, replaced with ritual, hierarchy, and intermediaries. Not because it didn't work, but because it worked too well. But here's what they couldn't suppress: the knowledge itself. It survived in hidden teachings, in mystical texts, in practices passed down quietly from teacher to student. And now, in this moment, it's becoming available again. You don't need permission to access this language. You don't need to be initiated or ordained. You just need willingness. You need to practice. You need to remember what you've always known but forgot. Try this. Set aside 10 minutes today. Sit in silence. Don't pray in words. Don't ask for anything. Just be present. Listen to the silence. Feel what emerges from beneath your thoughts. If this is stirring something in you, drop a comment. Tell me, have you ever felt something true that couldn't be put into words? The ancient practice that still works to bring this full circle, because the lost language of angels isn't actually lost, it's just forgotten. And the difference matters, because what's forgotten can be remembered. Every major mystical tradition offers a pathway back. In Christianity, it's contemplative prayer, sitting in silence, releasing all thoughts, all desires, all words, until only presence remains. Thomas Merton wrote extensively about this. He called it entering the cloud of unknowing, a place beyond concepts where direct experience becomes possible. In Kabbalah, it's the practice of letter meditation combined with breathwork. You visualize the sacred letters, you breathe their essence, you allow them to rearrange your inner world. Advanced practitioners report experiencing states where they understand things without thinking them, where knowledge simply arrives, complete and whole. In Islam, it's the remembrance practices dhikr done with such intensity and focus that your identity dissolves into the divine names themselves. The Sufis discovered that repetition of sacred phrases wasn't about the words. It was about using sound as a vehicle to transcend sound, to reach the silence beyond silence. And here's what modern science is just beginning to understand: these practices actually work. Neuroscience shows that deep meditation creates brain states associated with heightened intuition, expanded awareness, and what researchers call transcendent experiences. We're rediscovering scientifically what mystics have always known experientially. So where does this leave you? Right here, right now. With the choice, you can keep communicating with the divine through words, through prayers written by others, through intermediaries. There's nothing wrong with that. But now, you know there's another way, a more direct way, an ancient way that's still available. The language of angels was never really about language at all. It was about consciousness, about presence, about learning to listen with something deeper than your ears, about learning to speak with something truer than your voice. Every time you sit in silence, you're practicing. Every time you feel that inexplicable knowing, you're remembering. Every time you experience something sacred that words can't capture, you're already speaking the lost language. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. Drop angel language in the comments. Subscribe to this channel and share this with someone who needs to remember. Because the angels never stop speaking. We just forgot how to listen.